got, looks like our YouTube channel is coming online, and our Periscope, Twitter is online, and our Facebook, my Facebook group, to Cry Dear, Dry Tears, coming online, and our Facebook, just sending. Okay. Okay. Hey, hi everybody. Welcome to Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. My name is Bill McPhee, and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1987. I was hospitalized 6 different times. I lived in 3 different group homes. I had a suicide attempt, and I spent 5 years on the couch dealing with a deep, deep depression. Um, However, today I'm very successful. For 23 years, I published a mental health magazine called SZ Magazine, and now I consider myself basically semi-retired. I did that for 23 years, and now what I do is I have this group page called, again, Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children, and also I have a book that I've written called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. So that's a little bit about me. And basically, I also do this live every Sunday night at 9 p.m. I come on and we do a live session of helping parents of mentally ill children. And you can get the first chapter of my book for free by going to my website, billmcphee.ca. And when you go there, you can sign up for my newsletter and you'll get a welcome letter with a link to the first chapter. So I hope you do that. And also, what we do is on a periodic basis, once a week, we send out a newsletter telling you who our future guests are going to be and links to our past guests. As well, I have a YouTube channel. If you just search Bill McPhee into the YouTube, my channel will come up, and I have close to 400 videos answering questions and dealing with things like that. So that's enough about me. And right now, I want to introduce our guest for tonight. And I'm just going to bring her on there. So basically, my guest tonight is Elizabeth Anderson. And Elizabeth is an author, she's a professional speaker, and a course creator. Elizabeth is successfully recovering while experiencing 3 diagnoses of mental illness. Elizabeth's life work is delivering the message of hope that people can recover from mental illness. Since 1995, she has impacted more than 1,000 audiences with the story of her journey from illness to recovery to victory. Elizabeth has been recognized for her efforts as the recipient of the True Grit Award, the Lieutenant Governor's Circle on Mental Health and Addictions, and as a CTV Inspiring Albertan. She is an example of someone who lives with a diagnosis yet is resilient. She knows that being mentally healthy in spite of a mental illness is a journey she's eager to share with those searching for a new, positive paradigm for retraining, for reframing adversary. And Elizabeth, I want to thank you for being here. And you know what? We first met, I guess it was in 1996. I was on a speaking tour across Canada, and you were located in Alberta, in Calgary, Alberta. And I think you heard my talk, but we were there, and we became very, very good friends at that time. And it was a long time ago, but that's well. So, Elizabeth, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself during this interview, and I want you to eventually get into your book and what your book is about, and just all that you do in your, and also because this is a group called Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children, I would love to. I would love for you to talk a little bit to some helpful hints for parents and tell your story. So I'll let you talk now, and if I'm going to warn you though, that if you say something intriguing and I have a question, I'm going to jump right in there and ask you that question. Uh, so By the way, so how's it tonight in Calgary?
It's pretty sunny. It's really
Mm,
nice. So first day it's been nice. All the kids are out on their bikes. It's been a great day.
great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so my troubles, I had my parents were really good people. So my dad was a union negotiator at a fertilizer plant, and my mom was a school teacher. And my mom had a big disappointment. Education was everything to her. And she wanted to get her master's in special education because she taught her students to read, which is a very unusual thing back in the 1970s. So she decided that she was going to get her master's and she was up for a scholarship. So we went down to Boston and we were going to pick her university. We were going to stay with my aunt for a couple of years and leave my dad behind for a couple of years. And it was all going to be great, and I had the best summer of my life down in Cape Cod and New England, and it was fabulous. And we got back, and my mom was trying to figure out how the money was going to be dispersed so we could go. We would go back and actually go for her to go to university. And she found out that a younger teacher was picked for the scholarship, and she was devastated. And she started to drink really heavily and secretly, not obviously.
Mm,
So I would catch her drinking. And so it was hard because uh, I called a family meeting and they said, "How could you say that about your mother?" And I thought to myself, maybe I'm imagining it. Like maybe this isn't right. And so it was the first time I started to question my perceptions. So my mom and I had a rocky relationship, but it was all good in the end. And that's why I wrote my book, because it was an incredible journey. She back in
and
the 80s,
Elizabeth, give us the title of your book, Elizabeth.
sure, it's being mentally healthy in spite of a mental illness.
Being mentally healthy in spite of a mental illness. Great.
And so the reason I wrote it is it's about my mom.
Mm,
And it's about our journey. It's about my journey through mental illness, but it's also a journey of faith and a journey of her and I and us redeeming our whole relationship. So what ended up happening is I was in university like her at 40, and I realized I was the same as her in some ways. And I was trying to get my degree after many, many failures before I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed at my 30th birthday, but I've been struggling since I was 15 without a diagnosis or medication or any aftercare after I was hospitalized. I
mm,
was trying to do it on my own. So I met my husband and my depression lifted, and I thought I had it beat. And then the wedding was really stressful, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And my psychosis kicked in, and I spent my 2 years undiagnosed, and then my 30th birthday in a hospital. And it
oh
was
wow.
a shock,
Oh wow.
such a shocker. Yeah. So my poor husband didn't know what to do. He was asking around and everyone was saying new bride jitters. Nobody suspected mental illness. And so um, my mom by that time was on morphine for her legs. She'd been self-medicating somewhat. She was in pain, chronic pain. And so she was on morphine, stopped drinking. We had a really good relationship after that. And I started to realize that I was withdrawing. So I learned how to withdraw like as a coping mechanism. And so I was trying to break that habit. And my friends who were helping me said, you should go and apologize to your mom and try to make amends and see if you can repair the relationship even further.
Mm,
So I did that and I said, like, I remembered why she drank. Before that, I didn't know why she drank. And I remember during this process that why she drank about the education piece. And so I told her, and she'd forgotten too
mm,
why she was drinking.
mm,
We cried and cried and cried. She was in the hospital at the time,
mm.
and we just cried and cried. And it was such a beautiful thing to repair that relationship.
Wow.
And uh, she got out of hospital, and the next day, um, after she was out, I went over to the nursing home. She was in a wheelchair,
Mm,
and the nurse stopped me and said, "I'd like to know if you'd like to give your mom a sponge bath." And I said, I've never done that before. Like, what?
Mm,
And she said, I will help you. I'll put all the bases out. I'll put all the cloths out. I'll leave you alone. You can do this.
mm,
So I did. I gave my mom a sponge bath. She was 85. And just a little slip of a thing. And we laughed. We talked about how I didn't inherit her beautiful nails
mm.
and how chocolate should be a vitamin because we need it every day. And
Right.
we just had a fabulous reconnection. And so I was writing a paper for university during this time about my mom and I and our relationship. And I was telling her everything I was learning. And so I wrote about my process of doing the reparation in the hospital and then the sponge bath in my paper. And so I handed in my paper, and a week later, my mom died. She
Oh,
had dizzy, and
mm.
she aspirated, and she didn't live.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that, but you got the close. You got kind of a nice closure and good memories and no regrets. It was nice to do that right at the end. So that was very nice. So both of your parents are deceased now, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
My dad died when I was 25.
Okay, okay. So tell us, as you know, some of your struggles. I mean, that was sort of a new chapter in your life. How did you get involved into the mental health thing and wanting to share your story and help people? And so let's talk a little bit about that. How did you do the transition of basically, your life there and then your activities in the mental health field?
Right. So, I've been speaking for the Schizophrenia Society since 1995 when I was first diagnosed. And I really enjoyed it. And it was a really good thing for me, like therapeutic, and
Mm-hmm.
made me feel like I was important. And it was an important thing to do to let people know that it's okay to have schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have mental illness. No shame, no blame, no guilt. It's okay. And, and then you can get better.
Yeah. Were
People
you
can
were
go.
you surprised, Elizabeth? Were you surprised of the stigma back then? Did you deal with a lot of stigma? Because there's a lot of stigma today, and back then, like we try to always break that stigma, right? But it is like a wall in certain cases. Talk a little bit about just getting started, and maybe how maybe you were even surprised about how much stigma there really is.
Yeah, well, when we first started our program, I was not in the ground floor, but I was a couple of years in. Um, and when we first started, they were toning the schools, the high schools, because that's typically when you get schizophrenia if you're a male. And the schools were saying, there's nothing like that here.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen to our people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we couldn't, it was a couple of years before we could break in and say, you know, it's okay to know about mental illness. It might
Right.
happen, it might not, but everyone should be aware in case it happens to one of their friends. And we've actually spoken to a high school, and the fellow came up at a different one in a different talk in university and said, "You talked to my high school, and I have schizophrenia, and I got help right away, and I'm in university now." Like,
Mm-hmm.
how great is that?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And yeah, so lots of you said you couldn't get into the school for a couple of years, and that's the thing. Mental illness is so common. They say that 1 out of 5 people will have a mental illness, whether it be schizophrenia, schizoaffective, OCD, bipolar, um, anxiety, um, depression. 1 out of 5, 20% of the population, and even when my mom was actually. Diagnosed with bipolar back there when I was very young. It was just called manic depressive. But doctors back then were blaming it on families and the way you were
Yeah.
brought up and all that kind of stuff. And but people have to realize that relatively, psychiatry is a relatively new field. It's an early field, and they used to do some horrible things. Now we've come a long way, but we're still way behind. And with our, the way we treat our homeless and things like that. So, but yeah. So, how did you you must so as you're speaking and going and being involved, you learned a lot of things, and so you had to write about it. Did you know you'd kind of always write a book? Were you thinking that, or did that how did that come about?
Not at all. So I was speaking for the Schizophrenia Society at a university, Mount Royal University, and one of the students put no. She was. I usually do the rotation before the nurses go on their psychiatric rotation. So they actually go to as part of their practicum, they go to the hospital and there are nurses in the hospital. So they're pretty frightened. They believe the media. They're not sure about all this whole thing, but they have to do it as part of their coursework. So I come in and talk, and they say, "Oh, that's what it is. It's not that bad. Elizabeth isn't that scary." And so one of the nurses put up her hand and said, "Would you ever write a book about your life?" And I said, "No. Sounds really daunting." And so the professor came up to me after and said, "If you write a story about your life, I'll use it as a textbook."
Oh, okay. Wow. Wow.
And I came home and told Wade, we've been married, I don't know, 20 years by then, 15,
Hmm.
and 19 years or something. And he said, "Well, you better write that book." So I took a leave of absence for my job. I was helping adults with developmental disability, and I actually taught a woman with Down syndrome how to do a speech about her condition for new parents. So that
Oh.
was really satisfying to use my speaking experience to help her. But so I left that job and started writing. It took a leave of absence, and then after 6 months, I thought, no, I want to just continue this quest. And so I published my book. It was ready for the students in 2012, and then a friend of mine, three friends of mine, nominated me for the Lieutenant Governor Award. And they put in my book. I was part of an analogy, not an analogy, anthology of poetry.
Hmm.
And then I was acting in the play at the Schizophrenia Society, Starry, Starry Night, and I was speaking
Hmm.
and had got my degree.
Well,
And so
Elizabeth,
they,
I want to stop you there, and I want to go back a little bit before we talk more about your book and your teaching. I want to ask you, what were some of your signs and symptoms, some of your positive with schizophrenia
yeah.
we have what's known as positive symptoms and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms are symptoms that added to your personality that shouldn't be there, like hearing voices or being delusional or being paranoid, those things like that. And the negative symptoms of schizophrenia a lot of times are lack of motivation, a lack of drive, emotional bluntness, a lack of joy, depression can sit in. So, what were some of the symptoms and battles that you had to do then? I'm sure that you didn't get control over them overnight, but talk a little bit about that.
So what I did is I didn't know that I had schizophrenia. There's a symptom called anosognosia, where you
Mm,
don't know you're sick. So my first psychotic break, I didn't know I was sick.
mm,
And I'm sure I had a break before I got hospitalized and then another one in hospital.
mm,
So there's a lot to come back from. I wasn't showering, I wasn't eating, I wasn't going out, I wasn't phoning anyone. I thought my phone was bugged. I uh I thought people were following me. I still have that to this day. I still think people are following me, stealing my laundry, stealing my things.
mm,
And it's hard because and I'm trying not to cry because it does affect me still. Like I'm still even though I'm on medication, I still have breakthrough symptoms and
mm, mm,
I don't know if they're symptoms. Part of me thinks maybe it is real and that's really hard to know that I met a bullying expert once. One of my speaker friends, he does
mm,
bullying talks in schools, and he said, "What's schizophrenia like?" And I said, "It's kind of like being bullied, only no one's ever going to save you." And his eyes just kind of bugged out. It's like, oh,
mm.
and I'm bullied. I'm bullied by my thoughts. I'm bullied by my
Yeah.
experiences, and so that's a positive symptom. The negative symptoms. Sometimes I don't want to go out. I go for long periods of time without wanting to go out, which is, you know, convenient when you're writing and you're running your own business and stuff and there's no demands for going out like unless I'm speaking or whatever, but this isolation hasn't been as hard for me because I wasn't going out a lot before this.
Mm.
um, so yeah, it's interesting. It's but now that I can't go out, it's a different story. Like I want to go out more because I can't, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
Because of the virus, we're at a time now that we have this virus and worldwide actually. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So you've gained all kinds of knowledge and information and education. And let's talk about your book. The what's in it and what is your message in your book?
so it's about my mom and I, but I have a recipe for success in the back. I read about 250 self-help books trying to get better, thinking
Wow.
that there's an answer in there somewhere that I really didn't have schizophrenia. I could just find something else. And because I really didn't want to have it, but I do. And I have to just be okay with it. Like, no shame, no blame, no guilt. Like, it's a mental illness and I have to take medication and I'm okay with it. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a good life anyway.
Right.
So I a recipe for success. It's timely intervention, the right medication, supportive people, a reason to hope, a reason to be well, and something important to do. And I think if people have all of those things, it's kind of like a roadmap. If you have all of those elements, you've got a chance for a life that you like.
Yeah.
And if you're missing one, like if you're missing timely intervention, that's where it starts. I believe in medication. There's no other foundation for mental illness, in my opinion, my humble opinion. My friend says my humble but accurate opinion. But yeah, medication is important, and if your doctor prescribes it, just take it, no question. And find if it's not working for you, find something that does. Keep going back to your doctor and working with them. So, and then supportive people, everyone needs support. And I've gathered a whole bunch of people who support me. And my role is that either you have to know about mental illness or want to know in order to be close to me.
Hmm.
So no
Yeah.
stigma,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a reason to hope. I believe in faith. You need a reason to hope. When I fight to get my hope back when I lose it. I
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm spiraling down. I fight to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Stop everything. Get my hope back because it's foundational to wellness. And then a reason to be well, I think you have to have two reasons to be well. One is for yourself, and one is for something else or someone else. So it could be your mom, your dad, your plants, your dog, your girlfriend, boyfriend. Doesn't matter what it is. Just pick a reason to be well because your motivation can dwindle when you
Mm-hmm.
have mental illness. Then
Mm-hmm.
you can't always do it for yourself. So you have
Right.
to find a second reason. And then something important to do, it's missing from so many programs. I see people stuck in programs that don't fit them. And then we wonder why people are suicidal 6 months later.
Yeah.
They're in this program that they don't like. They have a life that they don't like. They're hopeless. Nobody's paying attention to that. And we have to, that's one of my big things is getting people into programs and into what I call juice in life.
Yeah.
I was lucky because I had the Schizophrenia Society. I was speaking, which is something I was pretty good at. I wanted to be a drama teacher, so close enough. And then I started being in the play. I was one of the first people in the Starry Night. I helped write it. So it was like I wasn't a drama teacher, but I was talking about schizophrenia and I was
Mm-hmm.
acting in the play. It was close enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just lucky.
Elizabeth, I want to just jump back to something that you said. You said that people get stuck and they don't have a life, and that's the key right there. Is that we have to get unstuck and we have to develop a life. We need a life. Like I always say, but way back in high school and that many years ago, people used to say, they'd say, "Oh, get a life," like joke around, "Oh, go get a life, go get a life." But that's exactly what people need. We need to get a life. And what you're saying in your book, all your chapters, your next steps, that's a process of trying to get your life back. And what's very important is the socialization. And what I find very important for everybody, which is maybe hard right now for because people are all in with the virus and inside and that. Um, but you have to find a life. And what was very helpful for me was making sure you had on your calendar something to do or something to look forward to. We
Mhm.
always need something to look forward to, even though something might be scheduled on a calendar. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but we should give ourselves lots of options and try to look forward and find something that to do. And to really be honest, at first, you're not going to like it. You don't want to do it. You won't feel like it. And it takes a while before you get your joy back and you're liking it in that. Now, jumping into that, because where we are right now with this virus is everybody in the world is basically on lockdown. You are helping with that through. You have a new course that you're developing. Tell me a little bit about that for just that people who are dealing with this, right?
Right. So I did a coloring book called The ABCs of Being Mentally Healthy, and I've adapted the ABCs to COVID recovery. So it's dealing with the anxiety of the lockdown. So it's accept the situation, be bold and ask for what you want and need, challenge yourself each day, and celebrate along the way. And it's pretty sounds simple. There's exercises and there's coloring pages so that you can really go deep into what you need to do to accept. I think if you're still pushing the emotions away, like I don't want this to happen, this is a bad dream, I don't like this, that's taking away from your ability to have a life of grow a time of growth while this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my message is use this time for good. Rest, replenish, renew, um, maybe do things that you didn't think you had time for before,
Mm-hmm.
reconnect with your people. People are phoning out of the blue and it's welcome. Whereas, if this wasn't COVID, you'd say, why are you phoning me? Right. But now it's like, I'm really happy to hear from you. You're an old friend. I really need to hear from you. So it's a matter of reconnecting and asking for what you know, what you want and need,
Mm-hmm.
and being aware of what your needs are, and then challenging yourself each day. So make a little plan for yourself to challenge yourself. When I was in the hospital, they said 3 goals a day, and there's speakers that make a lot of money telling people do goals a day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But 3 goals a day is really important. Just pick three little goals. When I was first out of the hospital, it was make my bed, do my dishes, phone my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was go to university, visit my mom in the nursing home and make dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then graduated graduated from university, it was get a website, speak for a living, and write a book,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, well, tell me, Elizabeth, let me know what your website is. Can you give us your
Oh,
website?
sure. It's www.beingmentallyhealthy.com. BEING, mentally with two L's, healthy.com.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And it is a nice site. I went on the site as well, and I'm still waiting for your book. I know that it's in the mail.
It's in the
I
way.
think it will come tomorrow, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so Elizabeth, is there anything before we almost wrap up here? Is there anything else you'd like to say, or really important, or your thoughts?
You know what? No matter where you are in the journey, try to move forward. Try to have hope. Get your hope back if it's lost. And it's hard because everyone's struggling with their mental health right now with COVID.
Hmm.
But if you can be hopeful and try to be happy during this time, reconnect with the people you love, and just be the person you want to be.
Okay.
Start to be that person. And what I say is it has to be in a way that makes sense given the diagnosis.
Mm.
Like I'm not the same person as I would be if I didn't have the illness.
Right.
It did change my outcome,
Yeah. And
but
I
you
think
can be.
And I think we become better people. We have more empathy. We have more compassion. We know what it is like to struggle. Most people going through mental illness has suicidal thoughts and different things. And you know what? And the thing that I always say is that we can never judge anybody because we've only walked in our own shoes. We've never walked in anybody else's shoes.
Yeah. So whatever you're trying to do, make it make sense given the diagnosis.
Hmm.
And don't be afraid of the diagnosis. It's a label for the doctors to treat you. My mother told me never to live up to a label,
Hmm.
to go past it, whatever I thought the limitation was.
Hmm.
And I think that's good advice. Good advice from mom, right?
Yeah.
Don't live up to the label. Just be the person you want to be.
Yeah,
And that's what I've tried to do.
that's great. That's great. So we're getting near the end here. So what I wanted to tell people again, so hold up your book one more time, Elizabeth, your book, and
So
they can,
there's the one book,
yeah,
and this is the coloring book.
yeah, very good, very good, great. Okay, and since you're plugging your book, I'm going to plug my book again.
Yeah.
So this is To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And one of the things that's very unique about that book is that it has all of my nursing notes in it and all of my doctor's notes and different things like that. So it's really a classic book. And you can find that at billmcphee.ca. And also, you could sign up to the newsletter and you'll get the free chapter to read. And so I'm going to end it there. But before I end, I want to tell people I know that you're a Christian, Elizabeth. I'm a Christian. And what I want to do is I make it a point that if anybody wants prayer, they can go to my website and email me, and I'll pray. I pray for people every day that I can add them to my list. So I'm going to end and pray for you people who have want nothing to do with prayer or not into spirituality or anything like that. Probably this is a good time to leave. Yeah, I don't want to offend you. There's no necessity to be offended. Just tune us out. But I'm going to spend this minute and say a word of closing prayer, and then we'll wrap up this. We'll wrap it up. Okay. So let me pray. So. Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you that I was able to interview Elizabeth. We thank you for Elizabeth and ask that you would just bless her and help her in her day to day life. We pray, Lord, that you'd help her in her relationship, in her married life. We pray, Lord, that you just ask and help her in her professional life with her speaking and her book. And we just thank you for that. And we pray, Lord, for all those parents out there who are dealing with heartache and struggles and different things. We lift them up to you and we ask that you be close to them and give them a sense of your presence. And we just thank you, Lord, for blessing us and loving us. And we just ask this in Jesus' name. So, Elizabeth, I want to thank you for being here. And I will say goodbye. And I'm sure we'll talk again. I know that I'm on your Facebook and we got our messenger going back and forth, so we'll keep in touch. And so, before I say the final goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. This is a really important thing that you're doing.
Okay.
And I hope all the parents realize how special you are.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, very good. So, you have a great night and bye bye for now.